Hi, this is Cephus, author of the Bitchspot blog and host of the Bitchspot Report podcast, coming to you with another episode of Bitchspot Quickies, where you can get in, learn something, and get out with no muss and no fuss. Today I'm going to say something that I've resisted saying for a long time. I am not a feminist. I never have been, and I never will be. By the same token, I'm not a humanist either. In fact, I think both terms are very misused in the skeptical community and often pretend to be something that they are not. And that's why I refuse to attach those labels to myself. They're just very misleading. Instead, what I am in favor of is equality for all. It shouldn't matter if you're male or female, black or white, gay or straight, religious or atheist. You ought to have the exact same rights as everyone else without exception. I don't have to attach a label to myself in order to be convinced that this is the proper way to go. I just have to be human. Oh wait, I don't really even have to do that necessarily. I just have to be rational, a quality that far too many humans lack. I mentioned humanism a moment ago. I don't adopt that label either. My humanity doesn't make me care about others. My empathy does. Caring about other humans doesn't come from humanism, but from enlightened self-interest. I want others to treat me well, therefore I treat them well in return, hopefully encouraging them to reciprocate. My being human doesn't really limit how I treat others. I am kind towards animals, even though I know that they are largely incapable of reasoning similar treatment toward me. And if someday aliens land on Earth, I'm going to treat them well too. I'm just a decent person. My humanity doesn't control who I'm nice toward, simply because they're within my species in-group. I don't have to be female in order to believe in equality for women. I don't have to be black in order to believe in equality for all races. I don't have to be gay to believe gays deserve the same rights. I don't have to be handicapped to think that they ought to be treated equally either. I don't need to adopt all these labels. I just have to be a decent human being. However, there has been a kerfluffle in the atheist community for a while now that centers on feminism and the demand that a lot of self-professed feminists take that somehow atheism requires one to be a feminist. That's just not the case. Atheism is the lack of belief in gods, nothing else. It has no creeds, no teachings, no beliefs. It is a rejection of claims by theists about the existence of gods. Full stop. You can draw no conclusions from atheism. It leads nowhere. It is an entity unto itself. You cannot start at atheism and get anywhere else. It simply cannot be done. Anything that you add to atheism, which might take you to another conclusion, automatically stops you from talking about atheism. You're now talking about something else. The idea that atheism leads anywhere, or that it inherently is linked to anything else, is simply wrong, and anyone who tells you that is full of shit. That leads us back to feminism. There are a lot of self-professed feminists in the atheist community who can join the two wrongly and assert that if you're not a feminist, you can't be an atheist. Clearly, these are people who do not understand the terminology and the concepts involved. Further, and perhaps most important, many, if not most of these feminists aren't interested in equality at all, but only in achieving it for their side of the gender pool. These people are radical feminists, and like radical Muslims, they are simply dangerous. Oh, I suppose they're not going to be strapping a suicide vest on and taking one for the team, but their ideas are extreme and irrational. I'm not going to claim that some of the most radical feminists out there who actively want to turn the tables and turn men into virtual slaves or stud fare are representative of the feminists within atheism. But it's hard not to see that when you read some of the things that they write. There are some dangerous ideas out there. There are some extreme ideas out there. We need to be careful what we accept in the name of accepting a label. Unfortunately, radical feminists aren't alone. There are many equally extreme groups who take the position that, quote unquote, we were once abused, therefore it's our turn to screw people over. This is a very, very common liberal thought pattern. Essentially it says, we were downtrodden, therefore we need extra rights that others do not have in order to catch up to where we ought to be. I'm sorry, but you cannot solve discrimination by being discriminatory. I'm sorry that you had lesser rights in the past. I feel bad that my ancestors might have harmed your ancestors. That doesn't change the fact that, in the modern world, those inequalities are largely gone, and you can become whatever you want to become with the same hard work and innovation that is the hallmark of the American dream. But no, they should just be there and have those positions without having worked for it or earned it on their own. If discrimination ends today, then magically there should just be an equal number of black, women, and gay CEOs in every corporation on the planet. Life has to be fair. Well, I'm sorry, but life just isn't. And while I'm glad that we're fixing inequalities, the idea that they all should have been wiped from existence magically, like it never even happened, is just ridiculous. Worse yet, so many of these groups only want to make up ground where they are behind. In cases when they're ahead, they just don't want to give up that ground. Women have quite a few distinct advantages in modern American society. Women have a big advantage in child custody and spousal support rulings. They are routinely given between 40 and 50% less prison time for equivalent crimes compared to men. Only men can be drafted in times of war. Sure, there's no functional draft today, but it's still the law of the land. It's only been within the last year or so that women have been even considered for front-line combat positions, and the vast majority of feminists have not been pushing for that either. I could go on and on and on, but you don't see feminists offering to give up these advantages to men in order to get any advantages they're currently held by men. Nope. They want to have their cake and eat it too. So why is this? Now, while I don't want to generalize for all feminists because, well, as with any other ism, it's not universal, and I'm all for giving people an equal shake for the positions that they actually hold, not for the ones that they've been assumed to hold. But for most feminists, and virtually all radical feminists, and you can go read and find out exactly what they say, they believe in this thing called the patriarchy, which assumes male dominance over women. Okay, I might even agree that in the past, such a thing existed in the United States, and that among many religions, including Christianity and Islam, it's still an integral part of their makeup. But for secular society in general, it's an absolute lie. There is no patriarchy in America today. In fact, it's swung completely the other way. You want an example? 50 years ago, if a marriage broke up, the children almost always went to the man. It was almost always a given that the man was assumed to be the breadwinner and therefore was assumed to be better equipped to care for and provide for the children. Today, it's exactly the opposite. The vast majority of children in a divorce go to the woman, not because she's assumed to be the better provider, but because she's assumed, with no evidence whatsoever, to be the better parent. If there was a patriarchy today, why would this be the case? It just makes no sense. Of course, just bringing this up at all is going to get me called a misogynist, which in feminist circles seems to be the equivalent of na poo poo. It's just childish how that word gets thrown around, and it's utterly meaningless. Essentially, to a radical feminist, a misogynist is anyone who doesn't drink their Kool-Aid. If you disagree, you're a misogynist. You're part of the patriarchy. You're an apologist for the rape culture. Now that's a peach of a term right there, isn't it? Seriously, these women think that the United States has a culture dedicated to supporting rape and violence against women. Well, I've got news for you. The incidence of violence against one gender by the other is just about even. Violence against men by women and violence against women by men is statistically about the same, yet we as a society take violence done by men against women much, much, much more seriously than the reverse. Does that strike you as a patriarchy where men are out for their own interests? Does it strike you as a rape culture where women are viewed primarily as sex objects? Lots of feminists complain about men reading Playboy or looking at porn online, but when it's women's night at Chippendales or it's a woman looking at porn, it's not disgusting, it's empowerment. Let's just get it out in the open. Any platform that puts one gender or one race or one orientation or one religion or non-religion above another, which advocates different treatment for anyone based on sex, skin color, sexual preference, or faith is inherently discriminatory. If you tell me that you want equal rights, I'm right there with you. But only so long as you want equal rights for everyone, with no advantages whatsoever given to one side or the other, except where there is an actual biological difference where such an advantage is required. There should be no difference between the rights given to blacks or to whites, men or women, gay or straight. It shouldn't matter who you are. It should only matter that you have an equal opportunity to make something of yourself. It makes no sense to stick a meaningless label on your forehead that extols the virtue of equality only for one side. All you need to do is be a decent person and support complete and total equality for all. Well, that wraps it up for another edition of Bitchspot Quickies. If you have any questions or comments, by all means, post them below. You can also come over to the Bitchspot Report podcast website, where I also host these, and certainly leave any questions or comments there. And if you have any other questions that you'd like me to answer in a future Quickie, please let me know. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.